Hey, C's artists, how are you doing? The artist we're going to learn about today is Georgia O'Keeffe. And the supplies we need are crayons, a white piece of paper, watercolor paints, a watercolor brush, a container of water, and a paper towel. And since we're watercoloring, you'll also want to get some sort of a placemat to put underneath your paper. So you can use newspaper or even a cookie sheet works good. An old placemat that's like a vinyl, just whatever you can find that will help protect the table underneath. Hope you enjoy this short video about Georgia O'Keeffe, and then we'll get started on our art project. Georgia O'Keeffe lived from 1887 to 1986. She is an American artist who broke away from traditional painting to paint the way she wanted to paint. She is recognized as the mother of American modernism. I found I could say things with color and shapes that I couldn't say any other way, things I had no words for. Her inspiration came from the things she saw around her. When she lived in New York City, it was buildings. At Lake George, New York, it was flowers and leaves. And in New Mexico, it was the desert landscape and its raw beauty. Her canvases were large, and the subject of the painting took up the entire space. Notice how sometimes she is zoomed in so close to the flower that you can't even see its edges anymore. It has been reduced to purely colors and shapes. When you take a flower in your hand and really look at it, it's your world for the moment. I want to give that world to someone else. Most people in the city rush around so they have no time to look at a flower. I want them to see it whether they want to or not. She loved the variety of colors in the desert so much that she ended up moving to New Mexico later in her life. She collected skulls and bones she found in the desert. To her, they were not about death, but life. They were the flowers of the desert. She enjoyed the interesting shapes they made held up against the blue sky. She completed over 2,000 paintings during her life. The Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe, New Mexico is the first museum in the United States dedicated to a female artist. Are you ready to create? We're going to start by drawing a flower that is large, taking up the whole space on our paper. So let's start with the center of the flower. It can be small, medium, or large. It's up to you. So I'm going to do a small circle for the center, and then I'm going to start with my petals, making sure that I'm drawing them nice and big, kind of filling up the whole space of my paper, and I'm kind of overlapping them a little bit. You want to just keep it really simple. And then I'm going to add a second row of petals behind the first row, just by giving a little V shape, like that. All right, now that I have my flower drawn, I can start adding some lines of color, just like Georgia O'Keeffe. One thing that's going to be really fun to use is white, because as you'll see later on as we watercolor, you will start to see these lines. Any other kind of details that you would like to do? We want to make sure that we're getting those in right now with the crayon. And also you want to press really hard, because we're going to do something called watercolor resist, where our crayon, since it has wax in it, it pushes the watercolor away. Okay, once we have all the lines done, we are ready to start painting. So we'll put away our crayons, and we'll get our watercolor paints. Okay, and remember, with watercolor, we need to have water in order to get the paint to work, and a paper towel. It's really important. You can just use if you have a nice brush that came with your watercolor paints, you can use that. You want something soft. All right, remember, we need to first wake up our watercolor paints. We always tap the water off onto the paper towel, and then, let's see, I think I'll use red. Okay, and we just kind of swirl our brush in the paint. Okay, I'm not jabbing it down hard. I'm just gently swirling it around, and then we can start to add And you can see the crayon pushing away that paint. And then I'm going to add some water to my paint and let that kind of flow and kind of bleed together. That's the fun thing about watercolors, just kind of letting it flow and go around together. Another technique you can do with watercolor is first getting the paper wet. So you can get the paper wet, and then let's do orange. And we can just drop that on there and let it kind of bleed into the paper. Make sure you don't get your paper too wet. You don't want your paper to rip. Okay. And with watercolor, we also want to work quickly. We can take two colors and mix them on the paper if we want to. I always like to tap my brush onto the paper towel. So that I can help control the amount of water I'm using. All right, once we have our flower all painted, now we need to paint the background. And we want to pick a color that we didn't use in our flower. So I used red, yellows, and oranges. So in my background, I want to use something else. I could use gray, maybe if it's a rainy day like it is today. Or maybe I want to do a bright sunny blue, or green, maybe for leaves. Okay, let's get that green ready to go. I can't wait to see what you've created. Remember to share your artwork with me either by filling out the form that's right here on Google Classroom, or you can tag me on Instagram at cs_art, or you can send me an email, csart@gmail.com. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.